you or begin to teach you about being a son of God and being called sons of God. We're going to continue kind of in that this morning, but given an understanding of how important being a son of God is to your environment. All right? Literally, you have to understand that where God has you in your life, the very places that God has you in, your jobs, your neighborhoods, your families, your friendships, your churches, everything, literally, the places that God has put you in your life is strategic. It's not by accident. Are you feeling me? It's not, we might even be in some circumstances or situations in our life that we got ourselves there based on our own decisions, but God still says, listen, man, I will work this thing out because I still have a purpose for your life and I care about the environment that you're in, and so I'm going to take you right where you're at and strategically use you to literally shift the environment. Now, I know you've probably heard stuff like this whole shifting. I am telling you something that is real. I'm telling you something that's real. I'm going to teach you some kingdom junk this morning. And so chew this thing up and swallow it and know that you are important right where you're at. Are you following me? You are important right where you're at. Quit cursing where you're at. Quit talking about how bad it is, frustrating, and literally change where you're at, and it won't be so bad. You follow me? Because God has sent you there to be the light. He said, I've called you out to be the salt and the light. He said, listen, what good is salt if it don't season where it's, the food that it's been sent to season, man? What good is light if it don't shine into the darkness of where it's located? I put seasoning in areas for strategic reasons to bring the flavor out of something. I put light in strategic areas to bring light to a place that's dark. And I've called you salt and light, and I've stuck you right in the middle of your situation because I expect you to change it. All right? But it's impossible for us to shift our environment if we don't understand who we are, because our environment ends up changing us. Now let me give you the verse 18, and I want you to get so excited about that you're going to help me out all day long. For I consider that the sufferings at this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. I'm going to tell you something right now, that the greatest moments of your life are still in front of you. Now, I know you've heard that before too, right? But the Word tells me that if you drew breath this morning and God said there is still a strategy for your life that is so important that I need it to come out, and so the culmination of your life has not reached its peak yet, and the greatest days of your life are yet waiting to be revealed. And so it's in you, man. It's in you. Your best moments are inside of you right now. You ought to get excited. I know you may get frustrated with who you see in the mirror every morning, and you may get frustrated with what you look at and where you're at and what you're doing. You may get frustrated with the way people are talking to you, but you need to look at yourself right now and say, listen, at this moment, I know that the greatest days of my life, the greatest work of my hands, the greatest words of my mouth are still yet to be delivered and waiting to be revealed inside of me. My best moments are still in front. All right? Because the Bible tells me so. Because if I got up today, man, it's still on. It's still on. Listen, I can get defeated and frustrated and discouraged too. Trust me. I was dealing with that this morning on the way over here. I was in the middle of the bed last night wondering if anybody would be here this morning. Anybody. Man, will anybody be here this morning? Why does anybody want to hear me? Why does anybody want to hear this thing that we got to do? Why does anybody care about Rejuvenate? It's just wearing me out this morning, trying to discourage me. And God says, listen, your best days are still in front of you. And if you can get up each day and realize that you breathe because there's life and purpose inside of you, then I'm walking you to a place, man, that you don't even begin to imagine the glory that lives inside of you. Your best days are still ahead. Just keep digging, man. I know it's frustrating. This present time, there's some suffering in this, but listen, if you are patient, if you persevere, I'm walking you to a place that you don't even have the ability to fathom right now. Ha, come on now. The glory which shall be revealed in us. So there's more to me than I see right now. You follow me? There's more to me than I have the ability to there's more to this thing, man, that I have yet to figure out. And I don't know about you, but when I get revelation, it's exciting. And so if I know there's still revelation about who I am, man, it's exciting. I know a lot of people want to know who they are. Are you following me? And so it's exciting to find out there's more of me still yet to come, and my greatest me is still inside of me and yet waiting to be revealed. I'm itching to find out who I am. All right? I'm itching to learn about what God is trying to build me into. Now watch this. When you get the opportunity to learn who you are and you begin to walk deeper into your... Now here's the thing. Let me tell you this really quick as a side note. You can't take what's been delivered and taught you in your past and discard it waiting for something new, but it was given to you at that moment to condition you and build you for that level in your life. So take the teachings that you've gotten, the revelations that you've gotten before, and make it a part of your foundation that is building you so that God can reveal more to you. Are you following me? You got to draw from everything that you've been taught, man, and what God has tried to speak to you even in the last 3 or 4 weeks, man. Take that and make it a part of who you are and let it build you. Don't ever walk your life every day without trying to be better. All right? I'm going to take a right there for a minute. Don't get up not trying to be better. Because the moment that I get up not trying to advance is the moment that I realize there's nothing else in me to be revealed. Not because God doesn't desire it, but because I choose not to allow him the opportunity. And so my identity, man, my greatest days are yet still ahead of me if I get up and I pursue, regardless of the present time and the sufferings that I'm dealing with. As long as I take what he's feeding me and I continually allow it to shape me and build me, God is walking me into something powerful as I get greater revelation of my identity. Now, this is where it gets good. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. Who's the sons of God? So come on, somebody tell me like you mean it. Who's the sons of God? All right, now watch. Look at this. For the creation is living with expectation for you to be revealed. For creation every day gets up. Now I'm talking about everything in your environment. God, everything, listen, everything that you look, these speakers were lived inside of God at one point. Are you following me? This was a creation that was inside the mind of God. Everything that you see is a creation of God. And so he literally just takes it all and wraps it up in one word and says, for creation, everything that has ever been produced out of me and on this earth is waiting for you to be revealed. Because unless you can begin to understand and walk in your identity, your environment does not have one. You all right there? For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of God. Your days are... Before you wake up in the morning, the places that you're walking into, the people that you will encounter, literally woke up that day with expectation that you would be in their environment. Waiting on you because you carry the Spirit of God. If you are a son of God, you carry the Spirit of God, and creation is eagerly awaiting your arrival, because the more you gain an understanding about who you are in God, the more it can find out who it is in God. Man, I'm trembling right now because I want to get this thing out. For creation eagerly awaits for you. Is that not exciting? Bailey, Alabama is literally waiting on you right now. Waiting on you to get there. I know it may frustrate you right now because you're leaving an environment that you're comfortable with and being thrust into something that you have no idea about, but it's literally waiting for this moment in time for your arrival in 2 weeks. Why? Because you're understanding who you are and you're walking into an environment that's begging to know who it is. And it's waiting on a king to arrive. A kingdom can't be a kingdom without the arrival of a king. He said, I've called you my sons, and sons in the same right of a king are also kings themselves, awaiting for the time that they can be crowned. And so it's your environment literally that you're trying to build a kingdom in is literally waiting on its king for its arrival. All right? Now, why? Because everything that God ever built has this order and this structure. Everything that God ever built has this these boundaries, that has this environment. The environment that he's created for you is literally begging for you to be there. Now, when all of creation was developed, it was developed by God and established under the order of the function of God. And part of that order, now listen, part of that order of creation. Now, if you don't believe there's order, you have to go back and read it. There were 7 days in this thing, and he didn't do it all at one time. He said, I'm going to order this. I'm going to create boundaries. I'm going to create boundaries by each thing it operates in, and I can't create the next one because it will fall under the order or the law of what I've created the first day. And so I've got to have order, and everything now on is going to have order to it, all right? So he built all these things and created boundaries and an environment for it that it would operate in. And then this is what he did. He said, I'm going to build this environment, I'm going to create its boundary, and then I'm going to build its king. I'm going to build its king that it's supposed to be ordered by. Now, this is going to jack up some theology of some folks, okay? And to know that God built you to be king on this earth. God is king of the heavens, and he says, I'm making sons of myself to replicate myself with my same power, my same authority, and I'm going to put them in an earthly environment. I'm going to put them in a natural environment where I rule the spiritual, they're going to rule the natural. And we're going to look identical to each other because he says in Genesis chapter 1:27, for I made them in my image. All right, and I've given them dominion and authority that everything their feet tread upon, they'll have power over. All right, and so he says, I've created the environment, given it its shape, its boundaries, its borders, given it order, and it's going to operate in that order because I'm putting a king in its presence to rule it, and that's my sons. All right, and so everything has to operate inside the order or the boundaries that God created them in, and they have to follow your voice. You're the son of God. You're the son of God. So he said, listen, I've got this order that I've established it at, and I'm putting this king in its environment that's going to order it. Now, the problem is that man, the very thing that was sent to order and to command the environment, walked outside of his own order, and it threw everything else into chaos. Man made a decision. It walked perfect. Everything was in order. Everything was in a perfected state. Everything was in a kingdom state. And then in a moment, man was enticed by its own flesh and its own emotions, and it stepped outside of the order of God. And the moment that man stepped outside of the order of God, because he ruled and commanded everything else and its boundaries, everything else became chaotic. You with me? So we get sickness, death, wars, disease, decay, men fighting against men, oppression, depression, addiction, everything. We'll get everything. You follow me? Those things were not present in the perfected state of man in the garden or in his kingdom. It didn't happen. It didn't happen until the very thing that was sent to order it walked outside of his boundaries, and everything else says, well, if my king can do it, then I can. So I'm going to go crazy. And so now we live in a world of chaos, and because we live in a world of chaos, it literally was created with borders, and when it was created with borders, now it's begging to be rebordered or reordered. And so it's begging now for the sons to be revealed because it's operating in chaos, but it wants to be able to operate inside its creative state. You follow me? We all right there? All right, I'm going to slow down, let that process for a minute. So your environment is literally begging for you to shape it. And that's why the placement of man is literally strategic in every facet of his life, because the moment that God reestablishes you in your order, you reestablish everything else in your environment. You literally carry the presence. Everything was created in the presence of God. Everything was created needing the presence of God. And once the very thing that was the channel of the presence of God on earth walked outside of its order and the presence of God was removed, everything else that was created in the presence of God lost its presence as well. And so now from eternity power, from history past until when Adam and Eve made a decision they did to step outside of the realm of God, all of creation has desired God's presence. You follow me? But you're the channel by which it gets it. You are literally the funnel by which God's presence and spirit is brought to this earth and causes it to shape and be ordered. And if you're not operating in your realm, it can't. It can't. And so it says, man, that literally creation is eagerly awaiting for the revealing of the sons of God because it wants to know who it is. I've talked to you the last several weeks about you discovering your identity. But you have to understand that your identity is so strategic and key because it literally identifies everything else. Nothing can live as it was built to live unless you do. That's why we can't expect to live the way we want to live and everything around us to get right. That's why we can't expect to live my own path and my own ways and my own desires by my own bill and foot my own resources and all that, and yet still pray to a God and want God to change our circumstances. Because I can't live outside of order and then expect my circumstances to live inside of order. That's how we got here to begin with. Man stepped outside of, the circumstances didn't change. The environment did not change until man did. So I'm begging God, God, change this, shift this, make this, heal this, break this, repair this, help this, do whatever you can to order my circumstances. And when you order my circumstances, I'll get myself in the right place. And God says, if you'll get yourself in the right place, you won't have to worry about your environment. Because it will listen to you. Because literally you stepping into your environment, understanding who you are, will shift the whole thing around you. It will shift the whole thing. Why? Because you'll be bringing my presence into it. And in my presence, it recognizes my voice. You'll be carrying my voice, the very voice that created all of this, into it, and it has to obey my voice. All right? And so literally, we have to begin to understand who we are for that very reason. Everything, again, was on earth was built to a boundary and that holds it to its perfected state so that it can function with its perfect purpose. There ain't nothing that can be the way that God built it to be unless it's living according to His order. Now, wrap your mind around this for a minute. There is nothing in everything in your environment, or everything that's literally in our environment as a world, is in chaos. Would you agree? You're hearing junk on the news every day about some stuff going down everywhere. Another movie theater shooting, another carjacking, another drowning, literally everything is going crazy. We're talking about wars. We're signing bomb deals, and everything is going nuts, man. Are you following me? We can't even get 27 candidates for president to agree on anything. All right? Now, I support a lot of them, but the reality is the whole environment is chaotic, and it's not going to change until the king walks in. All right? And so we're in a place that we're frustrated with our situation and our environment. God said, man, listen, it cannot function the way it was built to function unless you function the way you were built to function. It is impossible for it to live according to its purpose outside of its borders, and you are the commanding borders. Why do we expect then our situations to shift when it's living outside of the borders that God created it? All right? If a car was built to go 80 miles an hour and we're trying to push it to 150, it can't happen. Because it's trying to operate outside of the borders that it was created with. I can't push something to a limit that God never expected it to go to. I can't push people into a limit that God never built them to go to. I can't push my circumstances to go to I can't push my job, my employment, my finances to a level that God never expected them to go to according to my order. But if I do it according to His, then it has limitless possibilities. All right? And so He says, listen, man, your environment, I built it with parameters, and I put you in it to constrain those things, and yet when you don't live according to yourself and understand and identify with who you are, it has no identity. And so in verse 20 it says this, for creation then, because of that, was subjected to futility. Now let me stop right there. Futility means uselessness. God says there is literally your environment and the things around you are useless without its identity, and you're the one that creates its identity. So everything that you're trying to pull from that's a resource, unless I'm living according to the order of God, I'm pulling from a resource that's useless. I'm pulling from a resource, I'm pulling from a person, I'm pulling from a situation, a job, a car, a dream, whatever it is, that unless it's being ordered by God and I understand who I am as the king of, inside of God, then I'm working with things that are useless in their operation. He says, for creation was subjected to futility. It was subjected to uselessness. Now watch, it even says, not willingly. Now what I like about this is that creation that does not have a conscience. Are you following me? Creation that does not have the ability to live according to the Holy Spirit. We can't make a rock have the Holy Spirit for nothing in the world because you were built to be the vessel by it. All right? But even that rock, all right, even this car, even things that don't have the ability to have the Spirit indwelling inside of them, do not want to operate in uselessness, but it does it not willingly, but because it's forced to, because God has subjected everything according to His order. All right there for a minute. Follow me. Follow me. Everything is subjected to uselessness, not because it wants to, but because it was forced into that because you and I walked in uselessness. Because man walked outside of the uselessness that God built for it. When that happened, everything else was made useless. And so it literally, creation is eagerly awaiting its opportunity to live its purpose again. As long as you and I can discover what that is. It did not do it because it wanted to. It did it because it was thrust into it. Why? It was thrust into it because of Him who subjected it in hope. Now watch, God says, I've created things to follow your voice. I created you to be the king of your environment and everything in your environment to follow your voice. Now, I can't take that authority from you when you walk outside of your boundary, because if I take that authority from you, when I restore your authority, it won't be under your voice. And so I must render the things that I've built into a useless state, because it must follow my laws of creation, and I created you to be its voice. And so if I created you to be its voice, I have hope that through my Spirit and the drawing of my Spirit and the blood of my Son, that you will be restored to your rightful order. And when that happens, all of creation will understand who it is. And so God says, man, these things have been rendered useless, but they don't want to. They're begging for you. Every situation in your life that's out of order is begging for you. It's literally begging for your leadership. It's begging for your word, your mouth to produce the word of God. It's literally begging for your prayers. It's literally begging for your understanding of who you are. Your environment is literally begging for you to be there because it wants to be itself. Do you understand how frustrated you get when you can't be you? Do you understand how frustrating it is to wake up and not know who you are? To try to walk in this life and work jobs and talk to people and build relationships and marriages, and you don't even know who you are. And then we expect the things to work out and everything to be great and to be hunky-dory and all fine, and we don't even have an understanding of who we are. You following me? And so everything, man, is literally in the same boat, that if you desire to want to know who you are, so does it. And so it's eagerly awaiting the revealing of God's sons, and it ain't worked in uselessness by its own imagination or its own desire. It's done it not willingly, but because it was forced to by God, because God is waiting on the king. God is waiting on the sons of God to be reordered and established, to walk in who they are, to have an understanding that I am a child of God. I don't care what the people around me say. I don't care what my past has said about me. I don't care what my decisions have said. I don't care what my bank account says. I don't care what my boss says. I don't care what my husband says. I don't care what my grandfather says. I don't care what my best friend says. All I care to know is what God says about me. It makes no difference. I just want to know who I am in the King. Because everything, man, everything is subjected in hope that I'll find out. Because the creation itself also, now here we go, will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. That's more proof that the moment you walk in your liberty, so does everything around you. Literally, there's a picture, if you've ever read the story, man, when Paul and Silas were in the prison and they were in bondage and in chains, yet in that place they were still living as kings, and they began to shout and they began to sing praises to God Almighty. And the moment they invited God's presence and Spirit into that place and did not allow their environment to dictate their voice and dictate their identity, but they were who they were regardless of what was going on around them, the chains of their life literally had to shatter. And because they brought liberty into that place, everybody else that was in the building got free too. There is people in your life that are literally in chains and bondage that are waiting for a moment to get free when you walk in. Man, I'm teaching something. Golly. Because creation itself will also be delivered from the bondage of corruption. Because the moment that man allowed corruption to enter in, everything else was tarnished in the process. Everything. It's in that moment, literally nothing from the moment until Adam and Eve made a decision to step outside of the realm of God. Nothing had death, nothing had decay, nothing had destruction, nothing had war. Nothing. We didn't have nothing rot. We didn't have nothing just waste away. We had nothing like that, and operated in a perfected state because its king, its order was in a perfected state. And it's waiting on that again. Now, we learned last week, I believe it was, or a couple weeks ago, that it will be released from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. The Bible tells me that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's what? Freedom. Liberty, freedom, translations say it different. It's the same thing. Now here's the thing. We wrap this in the mindset of, yes, I don't have to carry around guilt anymore. That's the liberty that we talk about. Are you following me? But see, we got to get in a place that our mind understands it's a whole lot deeper than that. See, here's that God didn't build you just to not have no guilt on your life. God built you to be king. God built you to order your environment. God built you to set an example according to His Spirit and His voice. You weren't just built just to walk out of your mess. You were built to rule the environment you were put in. And so we're not bringing liberty that it just don't have its guilt and its shame. We're bringing liberty into a place, or the Spirit of God into a place, that it has the ability to be itself. And then he goes on further and says, for we know that the whole creation groans and labors with birth pains until now. Birth pains are expectation, is all it is. Birth pains are a voice of expectation. My wife right now is pregnant with our third child, and she deals with some mess. She deals with this being kicked and this rib being pushed on and having to pee 28 times, and it just gets frustrating. And then we're going to reach a place here in about another 3 months. It's going to start getting hot and heavy and frustrating. And then we're going to reach that day when God says it's time to come on out, man, that she's going to start feeling some pressure and some pain, man, that wasn't there a little bit earlier on. But the reason she's feeling that pressure and that pain and that frustration and that exhaustion and those cramps and all, and that everything that comes with it is because there is an expectation that for a moment, as she experiences this labor pain, there is a birthing that is about to happen. And so in the same way, creation has been walking around from history past waiting on you. Groaning, waiting. Man, I just can't wait till I can be myself. I can't wait till I can operate in the way that God built me to operate. But I need my king. I need the Spirit of God. I have been disconnected from the Spirit of God from the moment that Adam and Eve said nope to God and yes to themselves, and I want His presence back. You follow me? Groaning in labor pains with expectation. Groaning, creation groans for you. Creation's waiting on you to deliver it. You can't have labor without a delivery. Are you following me? We can't have labor without a delivery. So we got labor pains that's happening in our environment, and God says, well, that's because a delivery is coming, and I expect the deliverer to come in. Amen. Now guess who that is? The sons of God. Are you following me? This excite anybody, man? Not only that, now he makes it personal to ourselves. He says, not only that, but we also who have the first fruits of the Spirit. That's you and I. Even we ourselves groan. Let me ask you something. How many of you get frustrated at getting sick? Come on now, raise your hand, do something, nod so I can see you. How many of you get frustrated, man, that bones break and things ache and arthritis sets in and you get colds and allergies tear you up and you can't keep your eyes open for the whole months of April and May? And how many of you get tired of having to deal with that? You know why? Because your body wasn't built to function that way. And so it's groaning, it's desiring to operate in its created state. Are you following me? And so God gives you a picture of what it feels like for creation by bringing it and making it personal for you. He says in the same way that you desire to be healthy, in the same way that you desire to be in a perfected state that you were once in, that's the same way, man, that creation desires you. And for you to bring my Spirit in. See, when God came, when Jesus came and restored us to Him, all that was necessarily restored in that moment was our ability to receive the Spirit. But our bodies, are you following me? Our bodies and our minds were still subject to the consequence of the earth. And so the only thing that has now been made perfected inside of us is our spirit. Now the cool thing about that is the only thing that you need to be king is that spirit. You don't need your body to be, ain't nothing about in your environment that's ever listened to your body one time. You follow me? It either listened to one spirit or the other. It either listened to the evil one that was living in you or the king when it was living in you. But either way, your environment listened to a spirit. So it don't make no difference if if your body's going to crap or not. The reality is if you've got the Spirit of God, you're still king. All right? But now in the same way, God says, I don't just want you operating with solely my Spirit because I built you to operate in your flesh, but for it to be in a perfected state. I want your mind to be in a perfected state. I don't want you dealing with Alzheimer's and old-timers and dementia and frustrations and things wasting away. I want you to know. I want you to operate in the same way that I do. And so just as creation eagerly awaits for you, you're waiting for that moment that I can come back and resurrect and change that body that you're dealing with. And when you get that, man, it's on in. That's an eternity thing that's going to happen right there that I'll rule forever. Now here's the thing, is that right now my soul, my spirit rules forever. But I'm just waiting on my body to line up with it. I'm waiting on the fat to go away and the arthritis to go away. Are you following me? And the broken bones and the dislocations and the concussions to go away. I'm waiting to be restored to a perfected state, all right? But God says, listen, don't worry about that right now, man. I took care of the only thing that was necessary to be taken care of for you to begin to restructure your environment, and that's my spirit. But in the same way you want to be whole and healthy is the same way that your environment wants to be whole and healthy. For we were saved in this hope, but hope that is seen is not hope at all. For what does one still hope for what he sees? Because what I see, man, that ain't hope at all. I'm waiting on something that looks a whole lot better than this. It functions a whole lot better than this. But if we hope for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. All right? Now let's go on. Oh, y'all doing all right? Now, likewise, the Spirit also helps, helps in our weaknesses. For we do not know what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit Himself makes intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. That word groanings means they ain't even words comprehensible enough to be able to explain it. That's how deep this mess is, that God understands who you are and what you need. That there ain't nothing you can verbalize to explain what God understands about you. Are you following me? And that's the way the Holy Spirit is working for your life. But now let me preface this whole section right here and let you know that I'm about to probably walk you out of all the verses that you've ever used to get you out of messes and to get you out of bad decisions and to get you out and just blame it all on God. That ain't happening right now. You got to understand that Bible was written as letters, or it was written as pieces. It didn't have these numbers in it and broken down as chapters. And so you have to pair everything together and understand the context by which it's discussing. We can't take that the Spirit helps us in our weaknesses and just use that all by itself with understanding what God's talking about as a whole. All right? So now what we begin to understand is that you need to find out your identity and begin to operate in it, because your environment is desiring to hear your voice. Now here's the thing, is that my spirit has been restored, but my mind and my body haven't. And so I don't have the ability to know everything that my environment needs. Y'all catch up with me. I don't have the ability to understand everything that everybody in my environment desires or needs at that moment from God. I don't have the ability to understand the way that God created this to wholly function, or the way that He built my car or my house or my job. I don't have the ability to understand the complete way by which it needs to function in its right purpose. And so He says, listen, you just worry about beginning to discover your own identity and understanding who you are as being revealed as a son of God. And if you can understand who you are and listen to my voice and listen to my leading and allow my Spirit to lead you and allow my Spirit to carry you into the places I need you to go in, when you arrive there, although you might not have the understanding or the education to know what your environment needs, I'm already in the process of working this thing out. All I need is a willing vessel that says, I need to know who I am in God, and you just march me where you need me to go. And when you enter that place, I'm already making an intercession for you in your weakness, because you don't have the ability to figure it all out. Oh, man. He says, so listen, I'm already at work in your weaknesses. For I restored your spirit, but I have yet to restore your mind and your body. So I'm walking you into places with my Spirit, which is all you need to rule. And if you'll obey my Spirit, I'm already making a way for the places that you think you fail. I've already got, if you're afraid to walk into it, if you're afraid to take on the task that He's putting in your heart, if you're afraid to be around that certain group of people, wherever you're at right now, that you're hesitant about an environment that God is trying to move you into, don't you worry anymore today. Just be confident in what He's building in you, because the moment that you enter that place, He says, I've already made intercession for the places you are weak. And I promise you, where you carry my Spirit, you will not fail. Because this ain't on your dime, Jack. This is on mine. This is on my name. This is on my voice. This is on my Spirit. So I'm already making intercession in the places that you're weak. With groanings, I'm praying in a way that you don't even have the ability to comprehend. That's how much I know you and how much I love you. I want you to succeed. Now He who searches the hearts knows the mind and what the mind of the Spirit is, because He makes intercession for the saints. And here we go. According to the will of God. Now we can't get ourselves in a mess and be like, God, please work this thing out for me. I need this dream to work out for me. And God's like, whose dream are you dreaming? But you told me, man, that you would intercede for me and you'd make a way in my weaknesses. And God's like, but you ain't working my will. You working your own. See, and then we throw out a scripture. We only throw out verse 26. You follow me? We only throw out, God, you said you would help me in my weakness because you were making intercession for me, man. And he said, yes, but it's according to the saints that are working my will. You with me? No. You had to get up today being passionate about my voice. That's what he said. No. If you want to walk in an environment that is eager for you, then you need to walk in the path that I'm trying to carry you. If you want to walk around some people that you have the ability to impact and change, then you walk the path that I've determined for you and quit trying to walk your own way. He says, because the ones that have intercession where I'll make them strong in the areas that are weak are the ones that are eager about my will and about my way. And so then we go on to more of that church speak in the verses that we like to use. And he says, and then we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God that are called according to his purpose. Well, we throw this out there when we done got ourselves in a mess and don't know how to get ourselves out. Oh, well, this mess happened in my life because God's going to take it and turn it around and all things are going to work for the good of him who... And God's like, it's according to my purpose. Not according to yours. It's according to my purpose. What's your identity? Are you identifying with me? Or are you identifying still with your flesh? Because me working all this mess out is according to the path that I'm trying to lead you down. See, the thing is if you'll walk the path I'm trying to lead you down, that path is done figured out. I ain't got nothing to work out. I done figured it out. All right? But we know that all things, God's already got this thing orchestrated in order. He already had, when he spoke Genesis 1, when he said, man, listen, on the first day we're going to make light, and he had it all worked out from that moment. He said, I've got an order for everything. And he said, it only took me 6 days to make it happen. And I'm going to sit down and watch it go to work for all eternity now. Because I have already worked out its plans and its will and its order and its boundary and gave it its king. And now I can let it function. I done got this thing worked out. And so for us to ever imagine that God don't have our situations straightened out would be foolish. It's only the situations, though, that we allow ourselves to get into according to God. Now, God can take your situation and make some lemonade out of some lemons. But he says, listen, the reality is, man, is that things work best in your life when you walk according to my will. You follow me? When you walk according to my will. For whom he foreknew. Now, I'm going to jack up some more doctrine right now, too. You might not like me when you get done with this if you grew up in a different kind of background, but I'm going to tell you right now, to ever think that predestination from the standpoint that God determines who goes to heaven or hell before they're born is a bunch of junk. Because God said, listen, I love everybody that I've built, and if I didn't love them, I shouldn't have built them. Because I never had a plan that, hey, I never had a plan in my life that they should go to hell because I never built hell for them. I never built hell. I never built the lake of fire, eternal destruction for man. And so I don't have a plan for them to fail. And if I don't have a plan for them to fail, then everything that I've built I love, and I have a plan for it to walk according to my will and to be a king. And so then we have to understand, what's the language predestined mean? God says, I have predestined your purpose. For I know the plans that I have for you, that kind of stuff. I have a plan for your life. I have a way that I needed. I have an environment that I intended for you to live in. I have every gifting of your life was intended for that environment. I have a reason and a way that I want you to succeed, and I have predetermined that before you were ever born because I didn't want to give you a voice in it. I have predestined the purpose of your life, and it's not to fail. Are you following me? It's not to fail. Hell ain't even a thought for the kingdom person. I need you to hear me. Hell ain't even a thought for the kingdom person. Eternal destruction ain't even a thought for the kingdom person. So when we talk about predestination, we ain't talking about heaven or hell. We talking about whether you're going to walk in your purpose that God determined or your own. That's right. Are you following me? He says, now, listen, we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose, for whom he foreknew. Now watch. Whom he foreknew, who did he foreknow? Every single one of us. He also predestined to be conformed to the image of his son. Which means that God built you to be a king. God built you in the literal image of the king. He built you in the literal image of Jesus. He said, man, I have already determined that I want them to look like my son. I have already determined that I want them to think like my son. I have already determined that I want them to walk in the power of my son. I have already determined that they will win and not fail. that they will live and not die. Are you following me? Because I have already predetermined that I want them to be conformed to the image of my Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Because I want them all to be king. Are you following me? He said, oh, man, listen, you need to you wake up today knowing that your greatest days are in front of you. Why? Because God says you're king. You're king. Moreover, whom he predestined. Now let me also give you an understanding of that word. If you look at the translation of that word, predestined means boundaries, and it also means foreordained. Boundaries and foreordained. So he created boundaries, and your boundaries were to look like Jesus' boundaries. And he foreordained you to be a son. All right? So that's what that means. He foreordained you to look like his son. All right? So he predestined, or he foreordained, and those he predestined, he also called. Now called means invited in. He says, I'm not only wanting you to look like him, but I'm wanting to call you in that you can start operating in it. I want you to be a part of this. I'm inviting you into this house, and in this house we function according to my order and according to my spirit. And so I'm inviting you into my house and into my realm that you can live this thing out. And so those that he predestined, he also called. Now this is where it gets really good. And whom he called, he also justified. Now, justified means that he rightly restored you with legal authority. Rightly restored you with legal authority. He says, I can't make you look like my son and invite you in and then not give you his voice. He says, so now I'm calling you in, I'm drawing you in, I'm building you to be something more than you ever imagined you could ever be. You're a king, man. You're not just a person. You're not just a human. You're not somebody's doormat. You're not somebody's trash can for them to throw their nasty words at you. You're a king. I have built you to be a king, and if you don't believe it, I'm about to show you what that looks like. I have called you in, man. I've predestined you to look like my son, invited you into my house, and now I'm giving you your authority back. And when I give you your authority back, those that he also justified, and whom he justified, he also glorified. Which means, man, that he's making you look extravagant. Which means that when I open up my voice according to the will and the Spirit of God, man, that I can do things like Jesus did. Things have to listen to my voice the way it listened to Jesus' voice. I can look at blinded eyes, man, and they got to open up, man. I can look at to the lame person that's been in a wheelchair and speak to their legs, and they have to give up according to the Word of God. Because he said, listen, what good is it to look like a king if you ain't got the crown and the robe? Because what I predestined, man, I called. And what I called, I justified. And what I justified, man, I'm going to make look like me. You beautiful. You touch somebody next to you and say, I'm beautiful. Come on, don't be afraid. You need to start talking like it, looking like it, man. I'm beautiful. God built me to be beautiful. God built me, yes, styling and profiling, limousine riding, jet setting, whatever it is, man, do it, woo, whatever. You're bad. You're bad to the bone. You are bad to the bone. You need to look your enemies in the face and say, I really don't care because I'm bad to the bone. It makes no difference to me what you say about me behind my back, because God said that he predestined me, he called me, he justified me, and now I'm glorified. It makes no difference what you think, Jack. Come on, I'm giving you something right now. You just start telling them what the king says. You follow me? All right, let me finish this thing out. Now, if creation, your environment, understands who you are, then so do your enemies. If creation, your environment, your circumstances, your situations, the folks and the thing, if they understand that they're eagerly awaiting you to understand that you're king so that they can function in their purpose, well, there's also an adversary that does not want that to happen. The problem is that he knows more about you than you do. And so if there's a creation that is waiting on the revealing of your identity, the enemy is trying to keep that from happening. Come on now. He don't want you to find out who you are. He'll throw everything in the kitchen sink at you to keep you from finding out who you are. He doesn't, because listen, how does the enemy, I'm getting ahead of myself. How does the enemy, man, get you down? He uses the resources of your environment to bring you down. Are you following me? He will take your job out from under you. He will bust your marriage up, man. He'll cause 8 of them to cheat on you. He'll have people talk behind your back. Friends leave you at the drop of a hat. A church closed down on you, man, and don't care about you no more. People cursing at you, talking behind your back. He'll deplete your bank account. He'll bring sickness on you. He'll use everything of the resources of your environment to try to defeat you. And the moment that those resources understand who you are, they begin to line up with the Spirit of God, and he no longer has access to them. And so when he no longer has access to your environment to frustrate you and to ridicule you and to destroy you, he himself, standing alone, has no ability to look you in the eye and ever win. We all right with that? So creation is awaiting for your arrival, and the enemy don't ever want you to show up. And so it says, what then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, then who can be against us? If God has predestined me, if God has been the one that has called me, if God has been the one that has justified me, and if God has been the one that has glorified me, then who in the world can stand against me? What do I face that has the ability to overcome me? Nothing. Because if God is for us, who can be against us? For he did not even spare his own son to restore us. You got to start seeing your value to the King, man. For he did not even spare his own son, but delivered him up for us all. How shall we not with him be freely given all things? If he took on our sin, and yet to be rightly ordered to spread his blood so that we could be justified, and he was given entrance back in to the Holy of Holies and given access to everything in the kingdom, then how in the world the very thing that he was sent for not have access to it too? So how then is the Son delivered up and we don't have access to all these things? Who shall bring a charge against God's elect? I mean, listen, y'all got to understand the language here. We ain't talking about this weak Christianity stuff that we've been accustomed to. We're talking about somebody that understands, look, who has the ability to come against me? If I know I'm a child of God, now here's the thing. It's different when you sit there and you talking like that, but you still live in your own way. And it becomes forgive me, but a two-faced type thing. Like I'm professing something that's kingdom, but back here I'm living like myself. I'm living like my own way. Now, that's some jacked up junk. But if you know who you are in the kingdom and you're allowing your lifestyle and your decisions and your thought processes to be driven by his Spirit, you have the ability to stand up and say, man, who can place a charge against God's elect? There ain't nothing that can come against me. It tried one time, and yes, I let it get the best of me. But see, now God's done worked this thing out for me. I ain't worked it out myself. God's done worked me back into my rightful place. God's done glorified this thing, man. I'm in a place that God needs me to be. So who in the world can ever be against me and bring a charge against me? If God already knew there was a charge in my life, if God already knew that I had blemishes and I had spots and I had guilt, and he still sent his son anyway, then whatever else can be brought up about me that's ever going to turn God against me? It is God who justifies. Who is he who condemns? The enemy's got strategies, but it don't matter. Because it ain't him who makes a determination what happens with your life. It ain't him who determines, man, what happens in your purpose. It ain't him who determines your resources. It ain't got nothing to do with the enemy, because it's God who justifies. And it is Christ who died, and furthermore, now watch, it is Christ who died, and furthermore is also risen now. See, the Spirit is already making intercession for us in what we need to accomplish our purpose. Are you following me? But that don't keep the enemy from looking God in the face and saying, yeah, but Herb's still trash. You got Herb doing junk, man. He's still living like trash, but you got him trying to work out kingdom stuff. The Spirit's already praying for Herb that he'd have all the resources he needs. And so Jesus says, well, if the Spirit's going to intercede for Herb, that he has his resources, then I'm going to stand here and talk to my daddy in his ear and remind him who I am, not who Herb is, so that he maintains a place of justification. He don't ever quit. Every time the enemy steps up and says, yeah, but look what they did, Jesus is like, but I done took care of that. No, wait. You sent me to take care of that. That wasn't even something I decided. Matter of fact, I told you I didn't want to do it, and you sent me anyway. You sent me to do it. If you sent me to do it, why are you going to listen to this fool right now with everything he's trying to throw up in your ear about them? No. Listen, my blood was worth more than that. I justified them with the payment of my life. And so you can listen to this rat hole all day long, but we made him king again. Who is even at the right hand of God and makes intercession for us. And then it goes on to say, who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall it be anything of our resources in our environment? Shall tribulation separate us? Or shall distress? Or shall persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? Did I not tell you that the enemy would try to use your environment to bring ridicule against you? And he addresses it and says, there ain't nothing in their environment that any more can be used against them when they have been rightly justified and glorified. Who shall separate us? Ain't nothing in my environment. It's waiting on me now. But for your sake, we are killed all day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Yes, the enemy tries to come every day to kill you. That's what it's saying. Every day, trying to kill them. But in all these things. Now, see, I don't think we pay attention to this language. We just look at the word conquerors. But see, I told you something a minute ago that God never built you just to walk in liberty past your guilt. And so if it was all about just getting rid of your guilt, then he would have said, yet in all these things we are conquerors. But now God said, no, that was never my plan. He said, yet in all these things we are more than conquerors. We are more. Now, in all these things, you're not just an overcomer, but you're king. In all these things, you need to quit looking at the fact that you're getting by the skin of your teeth and start realizing that I'm setting you up to be far more than you ever could imagine. You're more than a conqueror. You're my son and king of your environment. Yet we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. Now this is really, I'm going to close up. You can play with you. I'm going to close up with this. I like this. Because see, God says, listen, and I don't know if y'all remember several weeks back, man, you can go back in Psalms and Ezekiel where I painted this picture for you. But God said, I believe it was in Psalm 8 maybe. He said, for I have made them just a little lower than the angels. Talking about you and I. But that word angels, the translation of that word means Elohim or God. He says, so I made them just a little lower than myself, but over everything else that was created. For I made them just a tad under me so they don't get greedy and start trying to take my kingship from me. But I didn't put them so low, man, that I put them beneath everything else. I made them just a little bit lower than me, but over all the rest of creation. Now, here's what you got to understand is that everything, both spiritual and natural, were created. You follow me? See, right now we've been dealing with the natural. They ain't nothing in my environment, not my tribulation or my distress or my persecution or my famine or my nakedness. There ain't nothing about my environment that I don't have authority over. There ain't nothing in my environment that if I begin to understand who I am, it can rob my identity. And he says, listen, it ain't just your environment, Jack. He says, for I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things that are going to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing. He said, listen, this list goes on and on and on because I built it all. But listen, even as the list goes on and as infinite as it is, it still does not have authority over you. There ain't nothing that's going to be able to separate us from the love of God who is in Christ Jesus. Come on now, y'all. That don't get you excited. He says, I'm making you king over everything you can touch, but I'm also making you king over everything you can't. I'm not just going to take it and make it where your resources have to listen to your voice, but I'm going to take it and make it that the one that's tried to rob your resources have to listen to your voice too.